episode number 184 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. My guest today is Dr. Natalie Masson. Dr. Masson is a clinical psychologist who supports women on their fertility journey. She has developed expertise in working with a mind-body connection through 20 years of psychotherapy in private practice. When she encountered her own fertility challenges in her mid-40s, she turned towards the research she had collected over the years to guide her through the physical and emotional challenges she was encountering. She found the tools to be so profoundly helpful that she began sharing what she had discovered with other women on the fertility path. Over the past 5 years, she has developed her Fertility from the Soul programs to support women who are drawn to a holistic mind-body approach to fertility. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Masson.
Hi, Michelle. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'm very intrigued by what you do, and I'd love for you to share your background and how you got into the work that you do today.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting how we all come to the places where we are. And I've noticed that in my niche, there are so many women who have come to this through their own experience. So I actually started out in a completely different field that I'm in now. It was sort of a mismatched path for me. I started out as an engineer, but I always knew that I liked working with people and helping them. So very soon after I started my first job, I started applying to go back to school to become a psychologist. And I got my PhD in psychology, clinical psychology, because I knew I wanted to be a therapist. And that was something that was just an intuitive match for me, because I was always the person who was wanting to hear people's stories and kind of hearing the deeper who they are and what makes them tick, and just wanting to be that person could help them get clarity and improve their lives. So it was just a natural fit to develop a career in something that I was sort of always wanting to do anyway. So I've been very blessed to find a profession where I feel like I get to do the thing that I naturally love to do, and I get to be paid for it.
Yeah, amazing.
And I was also always very interested in the body, being an athlete and a dancer and interested in health and wellness. So I naturally gravitated in the direction of the mind-body connection. It wasn't something that I was taught in school, but it was something that felt intuitively right to me. Mm-hmm. Like, how can we be well and whole and not talk about what's going on in our bodies? And early on, a friend turned me on to things like breath work and listening to the body. And I started pursuing that on my own, and realized as I worked with myself and my clients as I was a trainee, and just asking them questions like, where do you feel that in your body? What's happening in your breathing right now? And that opened up a whole different universe than what I was being taught about. I was learning a cognitive behavioral approach to psychotherapy, which is also valuable, but it has its limits. And when I ask people to tune in and hear that in their body, and then like, place your hand where you feel that, I saw things transform and melt away that weren't being taught to all. So I was like, well, I just have to do this. And it seemed gentle and natural. And so I started weaving that in. And so over my last 20 years as a therapist, I've been kind of evolving the way I help people tune into their bodies and listen and process things on that level, not necessarily just talking things through. And I've had more training in working with trauma, which I apply a lot to helping people with anxiety and depression. So how I got into focusing on fertility coaching was really through my own struggles with fertility. I got married later in life. I was 38 when we got married, and we needed time to be together as a couple and decide if we were going to have children. And that decision happened when I was 41. And we got pregnant right away, no problem. So I knew nothing about fertility except that, in our course is how you get pregnant.
Right.
And then by the time we decided we wanted to have our second child, I was 44, and I had a different kind of journey. It wasn't so easy to get pregnant. It took many months, and I dove in to learn all the things. And after about 10 months, I got pregnant. And I thought, wow, just in the nick of time. I was 45 years old. And I thought, every month it was like, oh boy, we don't have any more time left. This is going to be the end of the road. And I did get pregnant. But then a month or so later, I was miscarrying.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that was a turning point for me that turned me toward what I'm doing now. And it wasn't really the fact that I went through the loss that steered me. It was the places my mind went through the whole process of trying to conceive. I was already getting pretty wound up before on the way to that pregnancy. But I discovered after having a loss that it kicked up another level of obsessiveness and determination to make it right. I think that was part of the need to heal. I'm going to heal by making this happen again, by golly.
Yeah.
And then facing something that you don't actually have control over, because you don't have control over conception. You can line things up, and then you got to wait and see.
Yeah.
So I found myself getting very obsessed in ways that I had never experienced before. And so I had to pause and say, well, what do I do to help myself? I help people all the time with anxiety and their thoughts and feelings. So I started digging into my tool set, things that I taught other people, but hadn't necessarily even needed myself. And one of the tools was affirmations. And
they work powerfully.
I thought, oh, that's fine. People love them. I'll help them do that. But I just never needed it. But then I needed it.
Yeah.
And I tried it. And I started writing my own affirmations to get me through the obsessiveness of feeling out of control. So I wrote affirmations for each week of my cycle to match what I wanted to envision happening in my body. So week 1, there's a new lining, and my body is getting ready for this new possibility, instead of, oh, my period started, it's the end of the world. So I was talking myself through. And then week 2, my body's getting ready to ovulate. And week 3, I've ovulated and the lining is thick, and the fertilized egg might be traveling to go implant in this warm, thick lining. And so it gave me something constructive to focus on during those times. And it was surprising to me, honestly, like how quickly that helped break me out of my obsessive trance. And I thought, oh my gosh, other people need this, because I was in forums where I could see that women were just, the 2-week wait, just going crazy. And so I started sharing it on forums. I was like, look, I wrote these things, I recorded them, try it out. And some people were like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'd like to try that too. But mostly it was me just talking myself through, going, hey, I think I found something really helpful. So 2 cycles later, I did get pregnant again. And I thought, holy cow, this worked. This is amazing. I can't believe I have this chance again. And then a month or so later, I was miscarrying again.
Oh my God.
And by that point, I'm 45 and a half years old. And I'm just like emotionally beaten down. I've been on this roller coaster mentally, emotionally. I'm going to make this happen. It's the only thing that matters in the world. And physically totally depleted. Now I've been through 2 first trimesters almost back to back. First trimester is a real slog.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Put them back to back.
Right.
And I had a complicated miscarriage where it wasn't happening, and I waited and waited, and then had to take the pills. And it was just really, really depleting on every level. And, you know, a normal person would have said, okay, it's time to hang it up. Come on now. Or I'm going to just keep trying because every month there's a new egg and you don't want to miss it. But my intuition told me I needed something different. And I decided to take 3 months off to renourish myself, to really deeply put Humpty Dumpty back together on all different levels. And in my forums, you know, to say, hey, you know, I'm 45 and a half years old and I'm going to skip 3 cycles of trying to just nourish myself. It was like insane. Like, girl, get yourself to the doctor. You do not know what you're doing. And the next cycle, I got pregnant and my daughter is 6 years old now.
Oh my God, how amazing.
Yeah, I was turning 46 that month.
Amazing. Really
Yeah.
amazing.
So, yeah. And, you know, if you work in this industry or if
Yeah.
you've, you know, been on this path, you know that that is very rare. And I had to say, was that a coincidence? We don't really know, you know, it's not a controlled study. Or is there something here that needs to be shared? Because this doesn't match the story that they tell you
Right.
on statistics.
Yes.
First of all, that I got pregnant 3 times in 1 year.
Right.
At
Exactly.
45.
Yeah.
That is not the 0.1% per month, whatever your chances are of conceiving
Right.
naturally.
Yeah.
Then that I was having poor egg quality. And I had those miscarriages tested, so I knew it was due to egg quality.
Yeah.
That was why I decided I needed time off to kind of restore, renurture. And I felt like I had a calling to help other women who did not know this could be a possibility. Because there was something else besides the fact that I had a successful pregnancy at the end. There's something else really profound that happened during that time, that 3 months I took off, is not only was I physically restored, I focused a lot on basic health, sleeping, eating well, getting exercise, going out and living, having a life that wasn't about fertility, like reconnecting with friends, doing fun things, like just reestablishing, like, who was I before I went down this path?
Yeah.
Who am I? Who am I now? And the second miracle, along with that I conceived after that, was I felt normal again.
Yeah,
I
that's
felt
huge.
satisfied. I did not feel desperate anymore. I didn't feel like I have to have this happen my way in order for life to be wonderful. And I thought, oh my gosh, nobody can guarantee you a pregnancy, but if somebody can teach you how to feel wonderful anyway,
Yeah.
that is gold.
It is. It is. And what happens a lot of times is that people don't think that's an option.
Yeah.
Because that's part of that path makes you feel like there is no other option.
Yes.
It's like a
Tunnel
trap. It's like a
vision.
mental trap, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And that ends up being the thing that makes it so hard for us to find our ease. You know, everybody says, oh, stress isn't good for your fertility, la, 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 la.
That doesn't, yeah.
It's so hard to find your way out of that trap. Like you said, it's a trap. And part of it is there's only one thing that's going to make me feel whole and okay. And that's one of the early things that I work with women on in my programs. So I developed a full suite of programs to help women on their fertility journey, and it's all online. And that's my main focus now. I have a very tiny private practice, and my main focus is building online programs to help women all around the world who would like to find their way back home and boost their chances of getting pregnant. One of the early things that I encourage them to do is warm up to plan B. If this doesn't work out, what else can you see?
Mm-hmm.
And can you open to that possibility being acceptable, being a possibility, being something beautiful?
Yeah.
That's a little bit hard to suggest,
Yeah.
but if you don't have a plan B that's survivable and embraceable,
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very stressful.
It is, and it's one of the things that I do also with, because I have an acupuncture practice, and I also do some online work. And one of the things that I say in the beginning, which sometimes is met openly and other times with resistance, is, do you have a plan B? Is it okay to talk about that? And I always say, is it okay for you to talk about it? Are you okay with, thinking
Yeah.
about it, even just bringing it up in your mind? And some
Yes.
people are just not. They're like, no. And then some people say, okay, but in a sense, it gives a little bit more space to the process,
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
then you feel like there are other options and it's not like you're in this tiny little box where you have to fit everything in there. And it may work out there, but it just gives you that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, my plan B all along was that I always had a soft spot in my heart for adoption and for
Hmm.
adoption of an older child. And because there was going to be more and more space between my kids as we went farther and farther along the path without getting pregnant, I always consoled myself saying, well, maybe we'll reach out to adopt a child that's my oldest daughter's age.
Hmm.
We catch up a little bit because we're older.
Yeah.
Now we kind of like bought some
Right.
time back. And we're giving a gift by opening up our family to somebody who is not as likely to be adopted, and maybe kind of give them a better option than the foster care system. So I always had that back there, and I knew my husband miraculously was on board with that as well.
Hmm.
So I always had a plan B, knowing, okay, there's this other thing I would actually kind of love to do. And sometimes I
Yeah.
grieve that I didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
But I love that you put that invitation out gently. Like, do you have one if you want to talk about it? Because I do the same. I realize that when I introduce the idea, it's like, I know this is a challenging one
Yeah.
to look at. And it's just a gentle invitation. Can we explore this? And if you're
Hmm.
not ready now, that's okay. Come back to this. Just plant that seed that this is possible
Yeah.
to explore. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with the fertility world, since there's so much trauma that occurs and it's so raw, it's really important to handle with care and
Yeah.
not enforce opinions, because it just, that's what they're dealing with constantly, 24/7, opinions from everybody that have the right way. And it's the most complex puzzle to work out, that people just need to feel safe. So that's definitely something that I hold sacredly. And sometimes I do also invite people to write a letter to either the unborn child or the child that's meant for them. And that's a very hard thing for people to do. The reason why I do that, and I say, you're gonna, you may get emotional, and that's okay if you're ready. And the reason I say that is because I think that sometimes we forget that this isn't just a one-sided puzzle. It's like, it's us and it's the universe and it's also the child, and it's a dance between all of that and alignment. And there's such a huge mystery to it as well. And I think that sometimes we just make it kind of our responsibility, and it really is a dance. And I'm
Mm.
spiritual. I do believe that there is an alignment with the spiritual, the child, and it's important to at least in your mind, have some kind of connection or opening or invitation.
Absolutely. And that takes it to a different energetic level than I need a baby, I want to have a baby, I need to get pregnant. It's like you're talking about creating another life, you're talking about another soul. And there's something that shifts, I think, when we open up that conversation. And it reminds me of, mentioned the weekly affirmations that I wrote for myself. And that was the first thing that I kind of shared with the world. I put it on a YouTube channel. I was like, here's 4 weeks of affirmations. Go ahead and listen. I just wanted
Mhm.
people to try it out.
Yeah.
That became very popular. I made a few more affirmation sets, and it was really helpful for a lot of women. And I also made a set of affirmations for egg quality to help women focus on the whole wide range of things that they can do to nourish themselves. And but the next one I did is I wanted to do something along the lines of what you're talking about, that relationship. And I created a guided imagery meditation that I called Inviting Your Baby into Your Womb.
Hmm.
And it guides the listener through a journey of envisioning a mother bird creating a nest and all that preparation you do to create that warm, safe nest for the eggs, for the baby birds.
Hmm.
And that this is what we're doing in trying to conceive.
Hmm.
We can think of our body as that nest, our womb as that nest, and
Yeah.
how are we creating this home to invite
Hmm.
the baby in. Instead, we're going to make a baby. We're going to invite a baby, say, hey, this is a nurturing, safe, warm space. I'm ready for you.
Hmm.
Come on in.
Yeah.
And that became very quickly my most popular meditation. It's been accessed over 500,000 times. And it's a real game shifter.
It is. I actually have a hypnosis audio that's very similar. It's inviting blessings and inviting the soul of the child. There's something to that. And whether you believe that the spirit's really hearing or not, I think somehow it opens up a receptivity within yourself and
Yeah.
kind of like an opening to being guided because there is a higher intelligence, even though we haven't studied it quite yet. I mean, although studies are actually we're learning, research is coming to, I guess, catching up to that whole mystery, and there are a lot of visualization exercises that have been studied, so there is something to it for sure. When you're opening yourself up to this receptivity, then you're allowing yourself also to be guided into what's best. And what's interesting is you had that. You were guided to pause for 3 months.
Mhm.
Whereas you could have just kept going and going and going. And you could have also believed that message that you're getting older and you better do it fast because your eggs are going to get older. And you know what I mean? That whole,
Yeah.
the messaging that we hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right. It didn't intuitively feel right. And that's a lot of what I help women with is hearing their intuition versus the messages out there, because those messages out there don't know what's happening in your body. And in terms of that spirituality piece, I'm very open to any possibilities. I've always been that way, very science minded, but I'm also very open minded to things that aren't proven. We just doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just
Right.
means we have not used our method to come up with a test and data to show something.
Right.
And so I neither confirm nor deny what is out there
Hmm. Yeah,
because we don't know. There's a lot we don't know.
for sure.
And I keep all of my um, focus pretty practical, but I can also see a pathway that all of those belief systems, whatever belief systems people have, can also be rationally supported on a practical level,
Hmm.
because we all know about stress, the fight or flight
Hmm.
response, and constriction. All these stress things block the flow of energy in our bodies. It
Hmm.
blocks the blood flow to our organs. It interrupts the more optimal functioning of our physiological processes. And when we can open to and embrace a possibility that is on another realm, like connecting with your spirit baby and trusting the universe, things
Hmm.
like that, if we can connect with those in a way that helps us exhale,
Yeah.
helps us trust, those are the things that are going to help you let your breath flow, get the blood flowing through your body again.
Yeah.
And it could be simply by that physiological, that mind-body connection. I feel safe now. I feel trusting. I
Yeah.
can let my guard down. Now I can get pregnant. Right.
Yeah.
So it can be simply explained through very, concrete scientific terms. And there could be something else going on that we have not found great ways to measure. Who
Yeah, I
cares?
mean, look, can you measure love? Can you measure love? But you know it exists.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that are just not meant to be measured, but we feel them.
Yeah.
So I think that it would definitely be limiting to just depend on measurable things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where I think our intuition can bring us a lot that isn't explained in a linear way if
Mm,
we learn how to open the listening channels
for sure.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I do think that there's an experiential aspect to this that we just know through experience that when we are opening ourselves up, we do get guided or we listen to that kind of quiet voice within us. And I know a lot of people could definitely say that that voice was when that voice is spoken to them and they ignored it, they remember the moment that voice spoke to them and they're like, crap, I should have listened. I could
Mhm.
say almost everybody, whether it's like dropping the keys or something even small where something inside of them told them not to do it and they did it anyway, but they can remember very specifically not listening to that voice.
Right.
That's a very
Yeah.
good lesson.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's definitely something to it. But I also love the fact that you talk about your body and getting into your body and how sometimes just trying to get to an emotion or feeling through the mind takes you in circles because there's a point where it's you just can't resolve from the state that you're already in.
Mhm.
So getting into your body, it just feels like you can grasp so much more. It's easier to manage certain emotions by feeling or checking in with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually just having this conversation with a member of my program this yesterday because I teach a lot of mindfulness techniques, which is you witness where your mind goes, you acknowledge it, and you come back to the present moment, and you notice your emotions, come back, keep noticing the present moment. And she had a very good question. She said, "But what do I do with the anger, the worry, regrets? What do I do with that?" Well, mindfulness tells us come back to the present moment, but good news, I've got
Hmm.
other tools in my toolkit here.
Yeah.
And I think just recognizing that it's just a thought, it's just a feeling, we can come back to
Hmm.
the present moment is a very powerful intervention.
Yeah.
And there's another level that we can go to. I call it somatic listening. It's just kind of what I named this technique that I was using a lot in my therapy practice, but it's tuning into the emotion in the body,
Hmm.
placing a hand there if it's something you can reach, and um, validating it. I hear you. I understand you're here for a reason, and I'm just going to breathe into this
Hmm.
and nurture it with compassion
Yeah.
and not think about it. Like you said, that you can get stuck in your head. And really, I think of the stuck in our head stuff is it's our thoughts trying to grapple with an emotional problem through thinking. But
Hmm.
if we can go to where the emotion lives, which is in our physical body,
Hmm.
and simply nourish it in this very gentle way. And what I say
Yeah,
is
I like
the
that.
most basic thing our emotions need most of the time is attention, just to
Right.
be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Sometimes we also need something like protection. Okay, you're in an abusive situation. Your emotion is saying this isn't okay. You need to get out of that.
Right.
But on a very core level, our emotions need to be heard and acknowledged. And sometimes
Yeah.
that does spur on an action. Oh, I
Hmm.
need to protect myself. I need to get help. Sometimes all it needed was, oh, I'm sad.
Hmm.
I'm sad. I lost somebody. I lost a pet. I lost a friend, a family member. I'm losing it. I'm looking at losing a dream. I just need to acknowledge I feel sad
Yeah.
and breathe into that. And then sadness goes, thank you. Thank you
That is so powerful.
for acknowledging me. And so that is where, as you were saying, get caught in the mind. But if we can come to the body and recognize that all we needed was that hand of acknowledgement to say, I hear you. So much healing can happen with such a simple intervention.
Oh, big time. It's one of those things that I think a lot of us do, and I think it's also perpetrated by society
Yeah.
because sometimes emotions can be uncomfortable. You see people on TV crying and they apologize for it. There's
Yeah.
this resistance to the moment of emotions, and what your emotions really need sometimes is just acknowledgement and a feeling of safety and validation to
Yeah.
release.
Yeah. Yeah. The uncomfortable emotions get a bad rap. And we're in a society that is um, positivity biased.
Mm-hmm.
We want to feel good, no
Right.
bad vibes,
Yeah.
all these
Uh-huh.
messages. It's being called toxic positivity now. And I think we need support and coaching around how to be with the unpleasant and the uncomfortable, because it's so unrealistic that you
Mm.
can frame your mindset in a way that everything is rosy.
Right.
It becomes a lot of work,
It doesn't
actually.
feel good because I'll tell you, I mean, for example, if you like, say you have a conversation with a friend, this is just one example of how that just doesn't feel good. And you say, you know what, that situation, whatever was on the news or something made me sad. And they're like, well, I don't get into that kind of thing. Or, they immediately negate kind of that moment. It feels kind of like, oh, well, there's shame around like me
Mhm.
feeling bad about it, or and that doesn't feel it just doesn't feel good. And I feel like the feelings can be such a compass for what you truly need at the moment, and really all it is just validation. It's not like you're going to get stuck in that emotion. If you give yourself validation, it actually allows that emotion in that moment to flow with more ease.
Exactly. Right. And that's what people don't realize is that allowing yourself skillfully to lean into and hold that emotion allows us to gracefully move with those waves and move and come out on the other side.
Yeah.
It's not, people are afraid that it's a recipe for wallowing. Like they're going to
Right.
go in there and they're just going to go down into the abyss, which
Yeah.
can happen
Mm-hmm.
if you don't understand the skills. That's major depression.
Right.
That's when we get stuck in the
Mm-hmm.
darkness, and
Right.
that's not where we want to be either.
Yeah, correct.
So, but if you learn how to be with the emotions in a constructive way, yes, you feel crummy when you're
Yeah.
down, but you move through it. You're not stuck, and
Yeah.
it becomes okay to have that. When you know that there's a process, you will move through it, and then you can have that whole range without pushing it away. And you know, you can say times like these, because it's been a particularly globally difficult
Mm-hmm.
era,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
really times like any times have a lot of difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
We globally experienced a lot of loss of control and despair and loss and grief in the last few years. So it's really at the forefront for our global community, I would say. And at times like these, the sugarcoating it method and then just positive vibes is very limited,
Yeah.
because you got to admit some of this stuff is really, really tough. And we want
Yeah.
to have those tools to be able to navigate that. And that's what happens on the fertility journey. That stuff's tough. And if people want to shine sunshine on your journey by saying, well, it'll happen when it's meant to be, and it's okay, you can enjoy what you have, be happy that you have blah 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 blah.
Right.
It
Mm-hmm.
is not helpful.
No,
It's
it's
so
not at all.
painful.
It just invalidates. It invalidates, and it just makes a person feel more shame in bringing it up in the first place because it
Yeah.
feels just, it's awkward. It's not, definitely
Yeah.
not what they need. But yeah, this is definitely it's a very sensitive journey to go through. And it's really important that people give themselves, because sometimes you just can't depend on the people outside of you to give you what you need,
Mhm.
especially unless you're having somebody who's professional and is really good. You can't always depend on the people around you. And sometimes even your partner may not see it the way you see it. So that's why it's especially important for you to have some kind of practice or some tools to manage it as much
Yeah,
as possible.
absolutely. And that goes for everything in life. Not everybody is going to understand and be able to support you in the ways that you need. So I think that finding that support is a combination of recognizing what it is that you need and finding where you're most likely to get that. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
from yourself, your own validating voice saying,
Hmm.
it's okay. Of course, you're feeling this way. There's a reason. You
Right.
can talk to yourself, you can listen to affirmations, you can journal. And
Hmm.
then being able to tell people close to you, this is the kind of support I need. Please don't try to talk me out of this
Hmm.
sorrow or try to help me solve the problem right now.
Yeah.
What I need is a hug.
Right.
And it's finding the support team that has a similar outlook that can help you, that isn't going to poo-poo the directions that you want to go. Like a big
Right.
part for a lot of women on the fertility journey is finding the practitioners who aren't going to say, oh, at your age, blah 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 blah.
Yep. Yep. Oh,
Everything
yeah.
starts
I
with
hear
at
it.
your age.
As a
Let me tell you my
fertility acupuncturist,
statistics.
I get very frustrated when I hear those stories and some of those things. And a lot of times they're not true. They end up
Yeah,
being fine.
right. Not
Yeah.
even accurate.
They're not
Not even
accurate.
accurate. And like
No.
hope busters out there telling you
Totally.
that there's no way. And that's why I freely share my story, because
Yeah.
no traditional practitioner anywhere would have
Hmm.
said, what I really recommend for you at 45 after two miscarriages is to keep trying, but take a few months off.
Yeah.
Tried that. Like,
Totally.
no Western
Yeah.
practitioner anywhere
Yeah.
would have said that.
Yeah.
I had a decent chance, but I felt like that was my only chance. I felt like it was my best chance.
Yeah.
And so finding a team, and I had worked with acupuncturists who were not negative at all. In
Hmm.
fact, the acupuncturist I worked with, I had two along the way. One of them, I was seeing in the earlier part, and she, I found out my AMH was very low at one point. This is when we were before the first pregnancy of our second time trying to conceive.
Hmm.
And my AMH was like off the charts low. I think it was like 0.07.
Hmm.
And I, looked up what that meant. I was like, not good, not good. And I went to my acupuncture appointment and said, I'm not feeling so good about this. I got this test result back. I even went and out of pocket paid to test again
Hmm.
because I was like, that can't be right. And it came back lower.
Oh, wow. My
she
gosh.
said, she said, AMH means nothing. AMH means nothing. She was almost shouting at me.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know who to believe at that point,
Yeah.
but she was my ally. And
Yeah.
then at some point, I started working with a different acupuncturist after my first miscarriage. I think I just needed a change of scenery. And I was saying, if I don't get pregnant by December, and it was November, uh, it was October. I said, if I don't get pregnant by the end of the year, I'm going to stop. And he was looking at my temperature charts because he encouraged me to do charting and bring that in. I could see he was gutted. He was like, your charts look so good. I really think that this can happen for you. And he was
Hmm.
hoping I wouldn't stop trying.
Hmm.
It was the opposite, right? I'm 45 years old, and this is my practitioner saying, please don't give up so soon.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you're in the game here. So I had allies encouraging me
Oh, amazing.
to be hopeful. And how rare is that, right? You
It
hear
is.
stories where everybody around them is negative. Well, I was purposely not talking to anybody who I expected would have a negative opinion. I didn't
Yeah.
go to any fertility clinics because I kind of knew what the score was at
Yep.
my age. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't need to hear it. Why am I going to pay $350 to have somebody tell me it's too late? I know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So I just
And
did
and
not open my
nocebo
ears.
is a real thing. Nocebo, placebo. You want positivity if you're going to try. If you're going to try and you've already made up your mind, there's no point in getting somebody to give you messages of failure.
Yeah, when you kind of know what the message is going to be, why
Yeah.
ask the question?
Yes.
So I surrounded myself with the cheerleaders,
Yeah.
and just kind of like backed away from anybody that seemed like they might be contradicting.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what's that going to do for me? I don't need that in my headspace.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think being careful about creating a team of supporters who will be aligned with the energetic direction that you want to go, and finding communities. If you're going to be active online and be in forums, there are a whole bunch of forums full of despair and negativity and doubting, and that's you're marinating in whatever it is you're surrounding yourself with.
Yep, totally. That's
So
a great way to
it was
put it.
really important for me to create a community within my programs where it's, we hold hope for each other, and it's okay to be sad, and you can express that, and we can hold space for that. And we never say when it's time for someone to shift their plans. And we encourage, intuition and building a team that supports you. And the women find it very helpful to be surrounded by that vibe. The times when you're feeling a little shaky yourself, the people around you can have that. You've got that chorus around you that's singing the same song.
Yeah,
You don't feel
totally.
like you're just out there, off on your own planet, trying to do
totally.
some weird thing, which is how it kind of was for me in a way, because I didn't have a community that got any of what I was trying to do. I was just the weird one. And then so now I've created a community, which is really nice. They can come to me, they can talk to each other. And I can see that it's this ray of sunshine to have another way of looking at things, which I'm sure is what you bring to your women as well. It's like a new day, a new possibility.
Yeah, and we all have our ways of doing it. And I think that ultimately, if we always have the best in mind and hope in the people that we work for, I think that that's really the best thing that you can have, is really hope in the people that come to you. And I think that's a gift for sure that you're giving. And so for people listening who want to look into what you're doing and want to work with you, how can they find you?
I think the best place to start is my YouTube channel, Fertility from the Soul. And those weekly affirmations and the guided imagery, hypnosis-based fertility meditations are a wonderful way to see if my style resonates. And my website is also fertilityfromthesoul.com. And typically quarterly, I offer a 7-day TTC Chill Out Challenge. It's an online retreat where I guide women through 7 days of mind-body practices to find their way back home to that inner calm, to their intuition, to that sense of trust.
Love that.
So, yeah.
That's great. Well, Dr. Masson, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great conversation. It's definitely up my alley, stuff that I'm really interested in and intrigued by. And I think that what you're doing is amazing. And thank you so much for serving the community.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. It's really such a delight to connect with somebody where, we're in different geographic regions, but we're on the same mission, similar mindset. And I love that we can come together and share these messages.
Absolutely. Thank you. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.